And now presenting your lesson on how to build the essay. Do you want to build an essay? First step, let's talk about what our goals are for today. Hopefully by the end of this video you're going to know how to create an effective and concise introduction. We're going to walk you through that. The second thing I want to do is show you how to embed quotations and develop support for your argument. This shouldn't be entirely new. If you can recall, we've done this before in a previous paragraph writing exercise earlier in the year. And lastly, we're going to look at how to wrap up your essay with an appropriate conclusion. Okay, so how do we create an effective and concise introduction? So something that works well and is short. You start by creating a hook, and in the hook, introduce the topic and entice the reader. So what does that look like? So take a look here. Here's an example of an essay that I've begun. As you can see, I've already created the MLA formatting that I expect. So double space, size 12 Arial font. I got a nice creative title in the middle. So I'm going to talk about Maria's growth in West Side Story. So when I'm creating the introduction, the hook, what you do is you introduce the topic just to begin. So connect it to the world in some way. So I might just say something as simple as, my topic is about growth. So I might say, novels and plays have long shown that people have the ability to grow and change. Simple as that. So I haven't really mentioned the book at all yet. I'm just stating something about the topic of growth and change, how it relates to novels and plays. Okay, so now that we've used a topic introduction to entice a reader, we're now going to move to connecting to the text in the introduction. So this is where you introduce the name of the novel or the play that you're talking about and maybe mention some of the key characters that are going to come up in your essay. So it's a way to move from just a general topic to specifically talking about the play or novel you're going to talk about. So in going back to my sample essay, I've got my intro. I introduced the topic. Now I want to connect it to the play, the novel. So I'm going to say, in the novel West Side Story, and notice how I have italicized the title of the story. You should do that as well. Maria is a character that changes drastically. The events of the story unfold. So notice how I've now taken this idea of change and I've connected it to both the story and the character in the story. So of course with each different topic or whatever you're writing about, there's going to be different ways to do this. Just follow this kind of process to set it up. Okay, so now we've got our hook. We've connected to the text. We've introduced the novel, the play, and some characters. And now we're ready to give our thesis. In your thesis, make sure you've got an argument. Right? What are you telling us? What are you going to argue in this essay? And then make sure it's connected to the text that you're talking about. Okay, so back to my original essay here. I'm going to write down my thesis. So I'm going to say Maria shows incredible growth as she moves from a naive young girl to a more mature and serious, and you know what, I think she becomes hateful by the end, and hateful woman, if I can remember the story correctly. So there's my introduction. So I'm ready to move into my body paragraph, in which I'll have to use evidence from the text to support this main argument, this thesis here. Okay, now that I have created my introduction and thesis statement, I'm ready to begin writing my body paragraphs, my supporting paragraphs. And I need to embed quotations to develop support for the argument in that paragraph. So when any body paragraph starts with the topic sentence. So in this case, what I need to do is specify my argument and tie it to the thesis somehow. Okay, so now I'm ready to begin my first body paragraph. I'm going to hit enter once. And it's automatically tabbed for me to indicate the start of a new paragraph. So for my topic sentence, I want to connect to the thesis. A good thing to do is use similar keywords. So I might try and use naive and young girl and growth. Because my first paragraph, sorry, not growth, Maria. my first paragraph is going to focus on how she's naive at the start. So, let's say at the beginning of West Side Story, Maria proves to be a very naive and, I'm going to say optimistic, means she's very positive, young girl. There, that's my topic sentence. So notice how it relates back to the thesis. Keeps my arguments organized and connected. Good way to do it. Okay, so we've created our topic sentence for the first body paragraph. It connects to the thesis, tells you what I'm going to argue in that paragraph. So now I'm ready to start incorporating my evidence. We are looking for quotations from the text. Remember, I showed you how to do this back when we wrote that paragraph about Miss Strangeworth. Couple of cues here. Whenever you're introducing a quote, use context. Always tell me who said it, when they said it, why they said it, was it early in the story, who are they saying it to, anything to give me more information about the quote. And then follow the format I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so I want to talk about a part in the novel when Maria first introduces how innocent she is or how naive she is. So I'm going to start by saying Maria's innocence is revealed when she is first introduced in the novel, standing on her roof. So when I'm ready to embed a quote here, so I'm going to put a colon, open quotation. She was alone on the roof and in love with the world. That is a direct quote from the novel. Put a quotation around it, and I want to put in brackets after that the page number, which is page 30. And then notice I put a period after all of that. So look at the structure of this integration. Let's start with a colon, open quotation, put the quote word for word, page number in brackets, and period after that. Okay, so I've introduced my first piece of evidence. I used some context. I said Maria shows it when she's standing on a roof at the beginning of the novel, and then I formatted it appropriately. So now I'm ready to explain how the text, the evidence, connects to my main argument that she's showing herself to be naive. So let's go back to the essay. So in order to complete this argument, I have to explain how this quote here, she was alone on the roof and in love with the world, reveals her innocence. I have to kind of draw that out. So here's what I'm thinking. Something I know about the novel is that she's in a dangerous neighborhood. So I'm going to say Maria is unaware that her neighborhood is run by gangs. And there is great danger outside. So she believes that America, she's thinking about the whole country here, is a better home. A better home for her than Puerto Rico. Her brother Bernardo reminds her later in the scene that it is dangerous on the streets. She should not be alone. So that kind of completes the argument. I'm explaining that she's being innocent because she's in love with the world, even though it's actually quite dangerous, and it's revealed a couple of different ways. So to complete this paragraph, I'm just going to continue using evidence from the text to show how she's innocent. So I found another point. I'm going to add that in. Another point that shows Maria's innocence is that she fell deeply in love with Tony the first time she met him, feeling that her heart might burst. And you'll see, look at how I formatted this again. This time I just kind of embedded it. It was a phrase that I was adding. So you don't have to use the colon here, okay, because I've used it as part of the sentence. But notice I still keep the page number, the period at the end. So now I need to explain, how is this a point of innocence? Tony is a member. I'm going to point out that she's fallen in love with an enemy, essentially, of a gang called the Jets, which hates Puerto Ricans, like Maria. Maria does not realize how dangerous her love for Tony is. And so she shows, I'm looking at naivety, I'm looking at innocence, right? So she shows that her innocent nature neglects the harsh truths of gang life where she lives. There. That's looking like a pretty solid paragraph. I might want to try and add another point, but I'm ready to conclude it. So I'm going to use a concluding sentence. So I'm going to restate this somehow, but I might try and connect to the next paragraph. So I think what I want to say is something about Maria entering America and falls in love. I'm going to say with the country and a young man due to her innocent nature. I want to connect, though. I want to talk a little about how she's changing, right? So I can tie back to the thesis. So, though the course of events that follow will change her attitude. So there we go. So a nice introduction so far, and I got a full body paragraph. So I'm ready to do, so I'll do this essentially 2 more times for my other 2 arguments. My second body paragraph, I wanted to focus on how she begins to change into a more mature woman. So I'm going to say, as the novel progresses, Maria begins to grow into a more mature woman, something like that. And then I'll talk about all the different ways she became more mature. I might mention how her dress, she wanted the neckline lower. That was on page 61. And how she's going to her first dance and she's talking about love. All these things lead to her becoming more mature. She's talking about things that women talk about. And then I could talk about how she becomes hateful by the end. So those would be my other 2 body paragraphs. Let's talk about what to do for the conclusion. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is write an appropriate conclusion. So we've written our intro, we've got 3 body paragraphs that support the thesis, and now we're ready for the conclusion. So we want to restate the thesis, restate our major arguments, and then wrap it up somehow, make it a universal connection. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Let's start with these 2 points. So use keywords from the thesis and reuse them in the first sentence of your conclusion. So taking a look at my essay again, you can see I kind of finished up that second body paragraph. Of course, I'd have a third one, but now I want to show you the conclusion. So I need to restate my thesis. If I go back, you'll see, here it is. We talk about her showing incredible growth. She moves from naive, young, to more mature and hateful. So I want to use some of those words again here. Maria shows great change from a naive, innocent girl to a mature and hateful woman in West Side Story. And then I need to restate my arguments. Early in the novel, she shows innocence. She then falls in love and eventually learns to hate due to many tragedies she faces. The last piece, I want to connect the world in some way. So I might say something like, Maria's experience shows that growth in life is impacted by love, loss, fear, and in some cases, hate. And that's how you finish the essay. There it is. All our steps in writing the essay.